Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Business Spotlight. I'm Scott McMeans, and today I'm with Joe Joseph Jr., and he is a lawyer. He's got a really cool story and a really good opportunity for really good law. All right. So, what I want to do is give Joe a chance to introduce himself, get a chance to tell his story. So, what I'm going to do is turn the microphone and the camera over. And, Joe, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you're sitting right now.
Right. Thanks, Scott. Yeah, my name is Joe Joseph. I am a personal injury trial lawyer. I have been doing this type of work since 2000. Well, actually, I've been doing this type of work since 1999 when I became an attorney, and I practiced at a law firm in Cleveland, Ohio, for a few years, and then in 2003. I took a leap of faith and hung my own shingle and went off on my own and started my own law firm. Uh, and since then, I have grown the law firm. We're known as the Joseph Law Group, and we are a three-attorney law firm, 10 employees, and we do personal injury work all over the state of Ohio, representing victims who have been injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, and pretty passionate about getting people representing people and getting them the compensation they deserve after, an incident, a tragic incident has caused them harm. And again, I've been doing this since 1997, really, when I became a law clerk at this firm where I then started working as an attorney when I passed the bar exam.
I love it. So the fact that you took this leap of faith and started your own firm, as you say, hung your own shingle. One of the things that you made comment that I want to really bring to the forefront here is you said passionate representation of people that have been wronged by no means of their own or something they didn't do, it was somebody else's. How did you find that passion to do this kind of work?
That's a great question, and it's really one that when younger folks come into my office and they're a lot of times they're interns or they're law clerks and they don't really know their career path. I welcome that. I'm like, I was there. I did not know I was going to be a personal injury lawyer um, in college. I was an English major in college, and I studied English literature. And then I started getting involved in political science, and that was my minor, and that introduced me to legal classes. And when I got to law school, the change in education was so drastic that there was a point I almost didn't think I was going to be a lawyer. It's just because the difference
Mm.
in law school education and a liberal arts education is just night and day. Um, and what really grew that passion was I got a law clerk job at a personal injury law firm, and I started meeting everyday folks who needed representation for mostly car accidents, but there's a number of incidents that could give rise that somebody has a personal injury claim. And what I liked most about it was I was representing people, and I knew right away I never wanted to represent corporations or businesses or companies or big entities. I've never represented an insurance company or been on that side of things. I've always represented people. And I think
Mm.
that's, the connection with other people that need help, that are looking for some answers, and they have a pretty mighty adversary. These are insurance claims. So they're dealing with insurance companies that are pretty, aggressive and have a high interest in keeping, their interest at bay, which is saving themselves money. Um, so that was the first foundation of what made me passionate about representing um, people.
Great.
But I should also add, like when I look back on my career path, and I even look back prior to college and my law school education, there were some things in my life that happened that I go, that has probably fueled this passion. Um, and I talk about this in some other recordings, and I tell people this story, but when I was in grade school, uh, my close uncle, my godfather, he was involved in a very tragic um, incident where he came in contact with an electrical wire when he was
Oh,
painting and was severely burned and almost died. And
damn.
I remember the day it happened. I remember coming home. I remember cars in my parking lot and driveway, and I mean the street was full, that there was a lot of family members over there, and he spent a long time recovering from that incident, and it resulted in a legal claim that went on in my family for a couple of years. And I remember that, and I can't say that I linked the two, but I think
Mhm.
that probably laid the early foundation for why I find the passion to represent people, because it was something that hit home at an early age for me.
I understand that completely. I think, something that hits home from a personal experience, that is a passionate driver, no matter who you are. And I'm getting a vibe based on our conversations before and what we're talking about now, Joe, that there is a severe interest you have in helping the underdog against the machine, whatever that machine may
Absolutely.
be, right?
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's interesting, but the line that you said, I never wanted to represent an insurance company. I never wanted to represent the big guy. It's the person that was wrong by no means of their own activity. It's just they were wronged and they need help because one, they don't know what to do or where to step to next. There's this machine coming down on them, trying to get them to settle for the least amount of money possible, but yet they have the rest of their lives to worry about, right?
Right.
So there's a much bigger picture than just, all right, I have a lawsuit, going to go to court, sue you. I'm going to get a couple bucks, and my lawyer gets some money out of it too. There is a an actual fight that needs to take place between those that were wronged and the ones that were responsible for it. So the passion comes from a very solid spot, Joe. And there's a really good connection. I love the idea that your personal experience leads you to that passion because
Right.
I'm assuming that's what draws people to you because you're going to fight a little harder than the other guy because you've seen this firsthand from a family member going down the wrong pathway, fighting for years to try to get justice or any kind of relief from their tragic situation.
Right. Right. And Scott, I always tell people, like nobody is immune from this type of incident, from,
Mm-hmm.
a car accident or some other, incident that may give rise to causing another person harm or injury. Nobody is immune to that. So I get the great opportunity to represent all walks of life, different economic scales, different backgrounds. And I'm not, you mentioned like I didn't have interest in representing, a corporation or whatever. Like I don't answer to one corporate representative. I don't have one person that I have to report to. I have to report to all of our clients who are um, everyday folks from every aspect of the world. I mean, they could be, a dentist or a doctor, or they could be a teacher, they could be a nurse, they could be um, a laborer, and that's kind of what that makes my day really
Mm-hmm.
interesting because who walks through my door and who gets to sit down to me, it's not just one person that may be like-minded or like skin color or whatever or same background. It is anybody, and I always tell people nobody is immune to this type of having this type of legal claim,
Yeah.
and it could happen. And unfortunately, most people don't think about it until it happens.
And I think that's one of the biggest challenges most people have is leading up to whatever situation takes place. Nobody thinks about what am I going to do if this ever happens, and you probably shouldn't live that way. But when it does,
Right.
oh my God, now what do you
Right.
do? Right now you've got this whole thing you need to worry about. And I love the answer or the comment that you make. I don't answer to anybody. I don't have a corporate God that comes and tells me what to do. I don't have insurance companies telling me what to do. I answer to my clients, and that
Right.
person could be anybody that walks through my door. So your ability to talk to anybody, whether they're highly educated or they don't have a college education, there's obviously something you need to do to bridge the gap in communication from bringing the law to a layman's perspective versus everybody talks the same language as you do. So walk me through that mindset. I'm assuming, and again, because I don't know this, I'm assuming your ability to talk to anybody is one of your most valuable skill sets.
Right. And that was one of the things. Again, I'll go back to my early career when I got a law clerk job where you're doing law clerk stuff and not really, you're not in the courtroom, you're not meeting judges, you're doing a lot of the background work for attorneys and a lot of administrative stuff for the senior associates. But one of the things that I started doing as a law clerk was I started um, an initial meeting with clients. So somebody was in an accident, they had to have basically what we call an intake. I was one of the first persons to start talking to those people before they talk to an attorney. And then it developed, well, okay, Joe, you've been doing this for a while. Can you meet with this client and get more information? And I would go to their house and meet with them. And I think I developed that uh, that sense of like, I have to be relatable to different types of people. And that kind of developed that skill set that I think I have today, is being able to, you know, uh, relate to everyday people in a variety of different walks of
Sure.
life. Um, and then the legal skill set that you have and the legal knowledge that you have about the law and applying that to everybody's individual case, that takes time. You can't just learn it overnight. So um, there's not too many situations where people come in and they have a situation, they talk to me that I haven't seen before or haven't heard before. I mean, everybody's story is different, but they all have similarities. And so once you do it over and over again, then you're able to start connecting the dots. And I think that when people meet with you and they understand that you have this certain knowledge of how the legal claims work and how insurance companies work and all of that, and then you're able to tell them, oh, I know what you're going through, and here's what's going to happen. And
Yeah.
then especially when it happens, they're like, yeah, you told me that. You knew right from the beginning. Like, and so it's a matter of experience and time. And I think it was a developed skill. I think
Yeah.
so.
Well, I think it has to be a developed skill, but the idea that you have this skill set from knowing the law and this ability to communicate and connect with people, and along that pathway is, the next step is going to be this, whatever that you're going to be. You have to go through a deposition. When that deposition is over, you have to go do this. And I think one of the biggest challenges most people have when it comes to personal injury is, one, they think they're going to get a ton of money, so they hire a lawyer to get a ton of money, and two, I don't think they realize how litigious the system is. And I don't believe they understand how much actually goes into making this work. So having somebody like yourself, so many years of experience, a team of 10 people, there's a lot that you bring to the table to make sure that somebody is having their hand held, yes, but walked down the pathway in such a way that they're comforted at each step. I think
Right.
that's probably what's the big difference, right?
That's you hit the nail on the head because when somebody comes in our office, they don't come to us because it's a happy occasion. They usually are
Right.
calling me
Right.
because something bad has happened. And and I try to let them know that, we will walk you through this legal process. And in many ways, it's a legal minefield. There's all kinds of pitfalls. There's all sort of different things that can happen that could jeopardize a claim. And I do think that people mistakenly try to handle it on their own. And it's very easy to fall into those pitfalls or those line minefields and then, cause, a negative change reaction to their claim. Um,
Mm,
you said adapting to people that I represent. Yes, I have to adapt to each person, but then I also have to adapt to dealing with an insurance adjuster and or an attorney.
yeah.
And you have to wear different hats. And then you have to, in a lot of cases, you have to then deal with the judge, right? And you're gonna put on a different hat when you're talking and dealing with the judge than you are when you're talking with the insurance adjuster. You just have to.
Right.
And if you don't, or if you don't get an attorney right away, you could set your case up for, a negative result.
Yeah, no, there is again, there's so much to this journey that I think people overlook how simple it is. And when they when they watch a TV program or a movie, they think, oh, it's all compartmentalized in this very small, tight little neat box, and I should have my settlement in 3 months.
Right.
I think it's a little harder than that, right?
Right.
So what I want to do now is kind of talk about taking all of that stuff that you do. You're an expert in the law. You have this incredible relationship connectability with your clients, the judges, the opposing counsel, the companies. There's all that going on. Oh yeah, and by the way, you're trying to run a business too.
Right.
So
Right. Right.
how does that work? Like a law firm of 3 lawyers and 10 people. That's a lot of moving pieces.
Right.
So how is it as the leader of the Joseph Law Group? How do you do this? What are the challenges that you feel are something that you can talk about? Like this is how we handle our biggest challenges, and this is something that I want the audience to learn from you, from your experience. What's some of the bigger things that you want to talk about?
From anybody who operates their own business, or anybody who's in business for themselves, knows the challenges. And it doesn't matter if it's a mom and pop restaurant, or a pizza shop, or an insurance agency, or a hair salon, whatever it is. If you're running your own business, that there are a number of different challenges that just pop up every day, or every week, or every month, that sometimes I ask myself, like, how did I deal
Yeah.
with. If you're asking for one biggest challenge, I do think, it's keeping everybody on the same page and keeping everybody motivated to the same goal. And
All
I
right.
see in the background you have, Brown's football helmet. I'm a sports guy. I played sports. I was a Division I college athlete. I played football at Bowling Green State University, and I had the great opportunity of having some great coaches that had great experience at Ohio State and other universities. And I think I look back to those sorts of
Mm-hmm.
things that they instilled in our locker room, in running my own business. So I try to run it as a team. I always try to tell our staff and my associate attorneys and everybody that we're trying to be, a championship team. And how do you become a championship team? Well, that's not so easy, being a Browns fan, right? I mean, it's a culture. It's you have to have a winning mentality, and pick yourself up by the bootstraps and get back at it every day mentality. And I think that's, kind of how I have grown my business, having that correct mentality.
I love the idea of that, right? And I think one of the major challenges most business owners have is the mindset doesn't match what they're trying to get done, whether it's on paper or in practice, right? They think we're this amazing team, but yet whenever something goes down or something needs to happen, things fall apart because they don't actually have a culture or a mentality towards team effort every day. It sounds good. You have a meeting, but yet every day it gets broken down because the mentality isn't there. The idea that you say, you've learned so much from your experiences at Bowling Green and the coaches you've had experiences with, it's shown you how teamwork actually is effective, right? And now, as a manager, a leader of your own business, you're doing the exact same thing your coaches and leaders did, which was instill in you a championship mentality, which is, I hate to use Notre Dame, but I'm going to use this. No excuses, play like a champion today, right? That's what we need to do to be successful. And when there is a problem or there is a challenge, you step into that accountability, you're responsible for it, and you own what took place, because you know what? That was my job and it didn't go well. I learned, I'm going to adjust, I'm going to go forth and execute.
Right.
What else
Right.
could you ask for out of a team, right? That's an amazing way to approach it. The challenge I think a lot of people have, and I love you bringing this up because I want our audience to learn this, is it's okay to fail. It's okay to do something not so great, as long as you learn from that experience and you have an ability to execute a different way. take the adjustments and move forward. It's okay as long as you're moving forward. The
Right.
worst thing you can do is make mistakes and then point the finger at everybody else as far as I blame them because they did this wrong. No, no,
Right.
no.
And I think that's what that's what happens a lot of times, not just in locker rooms across the country or in businesses. Something goes wrong and then it all kind of crumbles and falls apart. But, you know, the mentality that I had is, it's a new day, it's a new week. What's behind you is behind you, and you got to learn and move on. And I have a saying that's, it's a little plaque on my wall that says, I should know it by heart, but it says that uh, the conflict between the stream and the rock, the stream always wins, not through strength, but through persistence. And so it's
Yeah.
just it's perseverance and persistence. You just keep going, you keep moving forward. I mean, I've taken my licks, I've lost cases, I've lost arguments, I've lost, you know, uh, briefs that have been argued before the judge, and I haven't gotten my way all the time. But that doesn't mean that, you've totally failed. You just
Mm.
keep moving forward and you keep being persistent.
Well, I'm going to tie this back to a great comment you made about how different you need to be mentally to talk to your client, opposing counsel, the company they represent, and then the judge. And what you just described to me was, Joe, you did not get the result you wanted to, excuse me, the result you wanted to out of the conversation you had with that judge, but you learned this is not how that judge likes to be communicated with. So I'm going to adjust myself and then do it a little bit differently, and then I'll find success. And again, the idea of between the rock and the stream wins, not because it's so determined, but it's persistent and willing to adapt, whether it goes around it or eventually cuts the rock in half. There is an adaptability piece that makes sense here, right? And you have this keen asset, which is I'm really good at what I do, but I'm even better at understanding what not to do and learning from it. That's an amazing skill set.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So,
So I appreciate you bringing up that challenge. So what I want to talk about next would be a lesson that you think you'd want to stand at the head of the class and say, all right, students, listen up. Because Uncle Joey's got a lesson for you today. Right? What lesson that you've gone through that you would say, you know what? If I were starting my business over, I'd make sure I did this differently, or I would adjust it so you as a new business owner don't have to go through that.
I mean, it kind of ties into what we're saying, but if you're asking me like one thing that I would do differently that I didn't do in the past, is that if somebody is on your team and they're not the same, they don't have the same mindset or the same culture, it's okay for that person to depart, whether they want to, whether they do it voluntarily
Mm-hmm.
or, it's, goodbye, see the door. It's okay. There's
Yeah.
not everybody um, on your team that, or everybody that you bring in on your team is going to have the same mentality, and it's okay that they're not a good fit. And I think that was probably something that I had to learn the hard way, trying to adapt so that they feel welcome and that it's a good fit is not the way to do it. And
Yeah.
you kind of referenced Notre Dame. I'm sure Notre Dame doesn't change their way of thinking for one or two players. They just say,
Yeah.
hey, this isn't a good fit. Maybe you could go find success somewhere else. And they may,
100%.
that is fine. But I had to learn that the hard way, because, and this is just simply being a business owner and employing people, is, if somebody is not the right fit, it's okay, and you have to have that tough conversation with that person. Um,
Yeah.
and so don't avoid tough conversations, and you don't sacrifice your own uh, you know uh, goal and mindset and ambition and all of that stuff to
No,
just stick
honestly,
with it.
Joe, that is one of the more profound lessons that somebody's brought forward here. And I want to say it because I want to make sure people understand this. Because we just talked about how great adaptability is. Okay. in a different context than what we're talking about here.
Right.
When you're building a business and you have your vision, your mission, and your culture is aligned in such a way that you have this amazing view of what your business is supposed to be, and then you have somebody on the team that is completely divergent from what you're trying to do, why would you keep them?
Right.
One. And second question is, why would that person who is not necessarily on the same page with you, why would they want to continue working with you? Because you're not aligned at all, right? It's almost as if you've got your 10 people on your boat, you've got 5 oars on either side of that boat, and you're trying to go down the stream, and one person just isn't doing anything.
Or going backwards,
Or
going the wrong way.
Or they're going a completely different direction. So it makes you realize, and I think this is important because there's a lot of businesses that I can't find any help. I'm gonna hire anybody to do this work because I need to get this done. But what they're doing is sacrificing their long-term sanity, their long-term goal, because they're bringing people on that won't do the things that they want. And that's probably from a customer service perspective, from a skill set of whatever job you're asking them to do, it's always going to be just below par because it's not your standard, because they don't align philosophically, mentally, their mindset is different. And it's a really hard thing for somebody to do that owns a business, because you owned a business because you wanted to give back to the community. You wanted to hire people, give them a living. And here's somebody that's struggling to meet what you would have as expectations. And yet your own goals are being sacrificed because they're not aligned. It's a really good lesson to learn, is make sure that when you're building your empire, you build it with the right people that follow you. And I appreciate that lesson because that's a good one.
Right. Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, really good. This has been a great conversation. A couple things I want to ask you. Kind of got into this, but I want to make sure that you get a chance to tell. What is your one piece of advice for a business owner today? I mean, we've talked about, keeping people on the same team, being that, making sure you have the right people. But what's one thing that you would really want to say is, this is my one piece of advice for any business owner?
For any business owner, I mean, we hit on a couple things, but I'm trying to think, something little bit different. If you have a dream and you have a goal, don't keep it in your head. Okay. Don't keep your mission and your vision in your head, because again, this is something that I had to learn the hard way. Like, I wasn't instilling in my early years the mission and the culture that I had in my head to everybody that was surrounding me. And if you're not sharing it, they don't know it. Your employees and the people around you don't know what's in your head. And sometimes I was guilty of doing that. I thought, hey, my actions speak for themselves, but they're not always watching you, and they need to know where you're coming from. So whatever business you're in, whatever goal, mission, vision you have, share it with the people around you. And, nowadays, share it on social media, share it on these platforms, and you'll find that you'll attract more like-minded people. And so I think that's
No, I'm so glad you went there, because that I was gonna bring that together and say, when you tell people your vision and mission and your culture, you explain it in such a way that people can taste it. It's palpable, it's right there, they understand it. Not only will you attract the right amount of clients that want to work with you because of your mission, the vision you have for your business, and the culture you have in place. Imagine the talent that wants to come work with you because they know exactly who you are, what you stand for, what you will not accept. They know that they're joining you because you are the person they want to work with. And what's even better, the people that don't fit won't come talk to you because they know they're not good enough.
Right.
So, they deselect themselves.
Right.
So it's a really good way to kind of prop yourself up and say, no, this is what we stand for at the Joseph Law Group. Boom, boom, boom. Bullet pointed out, let everybody know. Okay. Some people are not going to want to work with you because they know they don't meet your standard. And that's perfect, because then you can avoid that team member that doesn't align with you.
Right.
Great conversation. This has been great, Joe. I appreciate this. Really good stuff. Last question for you. I'm going to drop you into a time machine. You're going to go back and sit on a park bench next to 18-year-old Joe Joseph Jr. What would you say to yourself as an 18-year-old person? What advice would you give yourself?
You feel like I feel like I'm talking. I feel like I had you're asking me about the conversation that I had to my daughter, who's going to be 20 years old this year, as she went back to her second semester of her second year of college. I would tell myself, I think, what I told her. Um, and I told her, when she went back, I said, you are going to experience things in life and grow in ways that you could never have imagined, and things are going to come up that you couldn't even imagine. You're going to have to deal with these things. um, and it's all about growing and learning and moving forward and taking everything that you learned, and then finding something good in it. And so I think I would tell the Joe that was 18, like, everything doesn't have to be um, the way you expect. In fact, life is going to hand you cards that you would have never expected, that you had to deal with. And success is found different ways. You don't have to find a, like, well, this is how I learned it, or this is how I I imagined it to be. It's success is not a linear line. And
Mm,
my, I would tell that younger Joe, like, hey, um, it might not always look the way you envisioned, and things might not always look the way you wanted them to be, but that doesn't mean that your end goal has to change. You could get to the same spot different ways.
love it. The idea that success is not linear.
Right.
I mean, it's a solid comment, because whatever you thought success was as an 18-year-old looks completely different when you're a 35-year-old person.
Right. And you think
Just a
your life
different
is
mind.
going to follow a certain
Yeah.
path and a certain trajectory, maybe because of our school system. You go 1 through 8, and then you go 4 through 12. I mean, 9 through 12, and then you go to higher education, if that's your path or whatever. And we see it as a path, right?
Yeah.
But once you get out into the real world, you
It's
know this,
different.
Scott. It's not that, it's not that way.
And the idea that you can define success any way you want, as long as it's your definition.
Right.
I think that's where we need to fall. Joe, thank you for your time. This has been
Thanks,
great.
Scott. Thanks for having me.
Also, it's been my pleasure. And we'll see everybody next episode of the Business Spotlight.
All right. We'll see you.